All right, hey everybody, Daniel here. I had a question in Slack. Someone Slacked me a question, and I had time to make a video to talk about it. So that's what I'm doing here. So we're looking at some code. So maybe take a second, pause me, and just kind of look over this code right here. So assume that you maybe paused and looked over it, and let's kind of talk about it. The actual, let me see if I can pull up the image. I don't know where the student got the image from, which doesn't matter. It's all good. So yeah, I mean, if you send me an image and I have time to make a video, then sometimes I might just go ahead and make a video. As far as answering a question, it's easier for me to do that than it is to necessarily type it out. So here's the image. Right, here's some code that you can see. The first thing I noticed is, okay, so we're using some ES6 sort of syntax, so we have lets now, no longer we're using vars. So we have let students, and it's an array. And the way they write this array does not make it conducive to reading. So I went ahead and copied the code. That's what the image looks like. I copied the code on my own. And first thing I do is I'm going to kind of have the array be on multiple lines, so it looks more like an array. I have clear, and actually if you do on a PC Shift Alt F, hold that down, or I think it's Shift Command F on a Mac, it at least for mine, the way I have my spaces worked out in my VS Code, it makes the spaces there. So I see clear spaces with my arrays. I know this is an array. I see on the line by itself just the bracket, so I know it's an array. And then inside this array, I have objects. These objects that clearly represent students of some kind. So I have a name, I have a score, and I have a school. So, and you could, if you wanted to, make it maybe a little more clear. You can have objects be declared in one line. You could do something like this, that might make the reader, which could be you, read it a little easier, to have it like name, Mary, comma, score 90, comma, school, East, right? You need a comma because it's the last key pair in that object. You do that. I don't think it's necessarily that hard to read like this. But you have these 7 students here from different schools, different scores, different names. Just a little secret info, bonus info, if you're watching the video. If you're copying code, like here, if you wanted to add another student, if you do Shift Alt down, it copies the code for you. So I could make a bunch of more students if I wanted to. It'd be easier to do that. So Shift Alt down is a way to do that, or Shift Command down on a Mac, I believe. But either way, here it's just a student array, right? So you got some students there. So let's close that. Let's look here. And then we also have a function. So here they declare a function called process students. They use that keyword function. So they could have done this with an arrow and use that ES6, that arrow syntax if they wanted to, but they didn't. That's fine. It's a function that takes 2 parameters. It takes data, which could get data in a lot of ways. It takes some data, and then it takes in a callback function. And then it runs a for loop. Here's a normal for loop. They could have done a for each loop if they wanted to. I is 0, I is less than data.length. So you're traversing the entire data array, which I assume would be some array. If data at I, so if you're checking the index, dot school, dot to lowercase. So here they're checking, what if, here we wrote East with a capital E. What if someone was inputting data like that, all capital ESE. Here they kind of get rid of that. They account for that potential error by getting going in the data array. So they're a passing array, getting the school. So in this case, it'd probably be the school here. I take your school name, I lowercase it, and I check if it equals East, lowercase e. You didn't have to do this step if you took out the to lowercase and put it like that, equals East, and took out the to lowercase, you could do that. But I guess here you don't know how the data will be inputted, even though you assume they're going to have dot school. I would check if they even have a school. I would check like if data dot I dot school, right? And that. So you could have like a check to make sure that the array that's passed into it has a school. Because if you had a student here who didn't have a school, maybe they're homes. I don't know. If they didn't have it, then you would have an error. But I guess, in this case, you're writing a function. You're writing process students knowing what type of data should be passed into it when it is invoked. So, you can kind of know about that. Anyway, so they're saying if they go to east, then we're going to do if type of callback equals function. So again, that's making sure that the callback is a function. The callback needs to be a function because we're going to try to invoke the callback with data I, right? So again, what process students does really is a way to take an array and do a bunch to basically traverse the array with any object you want, called the callback, right? Any object you want with a callback, and it'll run that function for you. So it's a function that runs other functions. So, but it does have to check whether the callback, whatever's passed into callback, is actually a function, or else there'd be an error if it ran. So this is what it looks like. Here's them running that code. So they're actually calling it here. They're calling process students, and they're passing into it that student's array. So that would be the data. The data they're passing into is a student's array. And the callback function they're passing into it is an anonymous function here. This anonymous function right here. Function takes an object as a parameter, and it says if object.score is greater than 60, then console log object.name passed. So this is an anonymous function they're passing in to the callback. You could name the function. You could say, here, let's make another function. Let's make a couple. Let's just for practice, we'll say let check pass. I'll call it check pass. And I'll go ahead and write an arrow function like this. So here's our parameter. Let check pass. We'll pass into it. I know what it's going to be. I know you could call it here. They call it object because because maybe you don't know what it's going to be called. I'm writing this code. I know that this function should be passed into it a student because I know it already. You could leave it as object if you want to. I'm going to call it object student. So check pass student, and I'll say there's a conditional if object. So now student dot score is greater than 60. Right? If it's greater than 60, then you can say log console.log student.name plus space passed. So essentially, I took this function here, this anonymous function, and I went ahead and just kind of wrote it out later on and called it check passed. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, instead of having this right here, and actually, let me go ahead and I'll just comment it out. I don't want to get rid of it. And another way you could do this that might be easier to read is process students, call process students. And again, process students, this function up here, it takes two parameters. It takes some data, some array, which we could say students. And it takes some function to perform on all those students. Before it was an anonymous function, but now let's do check passed. Called check passed, like that. So save that. Let's see if it works. All right, I have this in index.html. I have it in a live server, and it works. Right, here we go. Index 24 is already working. So again, it's checking that. Now let's because the student asked me, and I'm going to make a video on it. I might as well explain a little bit more how I would change things. Here we have this if line here, and this is only doing if you pass. Like what I really want to make another function to check if you failed or not. I'm really only checking if you passed or what if you failed. Like I think it's important to say if someone failed or not. So maybe I wouldn't do this if statement. I'm gonna comment this out, and I'm gonna change it to a ternary operator. I'm going to change the turning operator. So I'm going to say console.log. And what am I? I'm going to log a template string. And I'm going to say, I'm going to do some logic here. So here's, in these braces, I can do some logic. So let's see, I'm going to say student dot score greater than 60 question mark, right? Turning operator. And if that happens, I'm going to do I think I can do a template string within a template string. This might be making it more confusing than it needs to be. Do 2 template strings. I think this will work. But I'm going to say template string student.name. If it's greater than 60, student name past the class with and I'm actually going to do another one here. Student dot. I'm going to say it with student dot grade. So that's one option, and I'm going to go ahead and move this to another line. All right, so here's some way you might see the turn operator like this. You see the question mark, and then if it's true, we do this, and if it's not true, we're going to do this. So basically copy this code right here. Now, this might be making it more complicated than it needs to be. Student that name failed the class with that. I know I might do this, and this ends my template string like that. So maybe try something like this. Console log, I do the logic here. If the student score is greater than 60, if this is true or not, if that's true or not, then this might be terrible. This might be terrible. But if it's true or not, then I console log this template string. Or I guess I'd need to, yeah, that's what I'm console logging. The template string, that student name passed the class with the score. If not, they failed the class. And that's only with East. So do I have any people failing? I do have one person failing. Steve is failing. So hopefully it'll say Steve failed, if this works the way it should. So let me save that, and let's see if I broke it. Maybe I broke it. Oh, and now it's all undefined. But it says Steve failed. So what did I put? Not grade, score, right? It's their score, not their grade. That's what I did. So just some food for thought, maybe. Another way to do some console log using even in template strings in the curly braces. You don't have to just do a variable. You can do any type of JavaScript logic, if you want. So I put a terminate operator within my template string, and then I save that, and now it says, who passed, who failed, passed, failed, with everyone who went to East, right? I could also process students. What if I add another variable here? I'll call it school. I like that. That's even cooler. Now I can, if their school equals school, that way it's because now. Before it was totally hard coded for East, but there's a school here called West. What if I want to process the students from West? So what if I say process students and I add the string West, and actually I'll add it lowercase. It should be lowercase. West here. Let's see if save that. See if that breaks the code. Right now I know who's going to West. We have Gabe. I have 2 students, Gabe and Rochelle, that go to West. Right? Let me copy that, and I'll put East here, and here's all my students from East. So there we go there. So again, this function, one more time, is a function. It takes this information, it takes data school and a callback function, and it checks for all the array. If they go to that school, do this type of function on that student. And here we're passing in the function checked passed. And again, you could get rid of that function there. We don't need to type function. That's 7 letters. Why not just type the arrow function instead? There's no this here, so I don't have to worry about it. And it should also, again, this still works. So where can we get rid of function here, right? Yeah. So A way to think about it, you have an array, you're passing into this function the array, you're passing the school, you're passing the callback function to be performed on that. So a function performing functions. The other thing I want to really drive home, I think an important distinction to make, notice in process students here, when we call this function check passed, I don't invoke it here. I'm not, remember the open curly brace, it's also a syntax for invoking a function. I'm not invoking it. I want process students to invoke it. Process students is going to do the callback. They're the ones invoking the function, not me. I'm not invoking this function. I'm invoking process students, and then process students is invoking my function. I'm not invoking it. I'm not invoking the check passed, I mean. So food for thought, way to refactor code, try to understand code and what's going on. So again, double check. That does work. Okay, yeah. So some ways to look at code. Cool. If you have more questions, ask me your questions. I can make videos, when I have free time to help out. And I'll see you guys in class. Bye.